I'd like to begin by telling you a short story. It's a slightly odd one, so bear with me. It's the story of a man called Otto. Otto von Habsburg, of the great Habsburg dynasty of Central Europe. He was, in the 20th century, the Archduke of Austria and Crown Prince of Austro-Hungary, who actually ended up dying at a very old age in 2011. He was buried with the traditional liturgies of the Holy Roman Emperors of the Middle Ages, buried in the imperial crypt of the Capuchin Church in Vienna. For a long time, the way that this dynasty went about their funeral rites was rather unique. And in fact, given this was 2011, you can actually go back and watch the video of this particular interaction, which begins the service. So if you can picture, there is an enormous funeral party. Heads of state from around the world, countless crowds thronging behind, the streets of Vienna jam-packed with people to farewell the late Crown Prince. And so the party arrives at the locked doors of this ancient Capuchin friary. The herald walks up and bangs upon the doors. After a while, an elderly friar opens a little hatch in it and pokes his head out and asks, "Who desires admission?" To which the herald, with great pride and triumph, declares, "Otto of Austria, former Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary, Prince Royal of Hungary, Croatia, and Bohemia, of Dalmatia, Croatia, Slavonia, Galicia, Lodomeria, and Illyria, Grand Duke of Tuscany and Krakow, Duke of Lorraine, Salzburg, Styria, Carinthia, Carniola, and Bukovina, Grand Prince of Transylvania, Margrave of Moravia, Duke of Upper and Lower Silesia, Modena, Parma, Piacenza, and Guastalla, of Oswiecim and Zator, of Teschen, Friaul, Dubrovnik, and Zadar, Princely Count of Habsburg and Tyrol, of Kiburg, Korizia, and Gradiska, Prince of Trento and Brixen, Margrave of Upper and Lower Lusacia and Istria, Count of Hohenems, Feldkirch, Bregenz, Sonnenberg, Lord of Trieste, Kotor, and the Windic March, Grand Voivod of the Voivodship of Serbia." To which the friar replies, "We've never heard of him," and closes the hatch. So again, the herald knocks on the locked doors. After a moment, the little hatch opens and the friar sticks his head out and asks, "Who desires admission?" The herald tries a second time and says, "Dr. Otto von Habsburg, President and Honorary President of the Pan-European Union, member and father of the House of the European Parliament, holder of honorary doctorates from countless universities, freeman of many communities in Central Europe, member of numerous noble academies and institutes, bearer of high and higher awards, decorations, and honors of church and state, made to him in recognition of his decades-long struggle for the freedom of peoples, for rights, and for justice." "We haven't heard of him," the friar replies, and again closes the hatch. And so, a third time, the herald pounds upon the doors, and the hatch again opens. The little Capuchin friar asks, "Who desires admission?" To which the herald replies, "Otto, a mortal and sinful man." In a moment, the doors open, and the company of friars there receive him with the words, "Welcome, brother. Let him be admitted." Nothing lasts. Nothing that I accumulate. Nothing I might seek to garner for myself. Money, though I'm probably not in the right occupation for that, but awards, honors, titles, land, cars. None of it lasts. Here in this really rather wonderful start to the ancient liturgies of the Holy Roman Emperors is something that it seems to me runs consistently through the readings we've had today. particularly our first lesson, that from the great book of Ecclesiastes, this book of wisdom. Nothing in this world lasts, the author reminds us. Honors, titles, possessions, indeed, even efforts. Everything, including ourselves, will eventually fade away. How marvelous to have today in that first lesson that most famous line, one of the most famous lines surely of the Old Testament, vanity of vanities. Behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. Everything we hold in this world, the book suggests, for indeed this theme runs consistently through Ecclesiastes, we hold temporarily. Solomon is the person who's attributed as the author of this book, and we see early on in the book that he writes this at the very end of his life. He looks back on his reign as one of the greatest kings of Israel, a king, as we know from the scriptures, deep in wisdom, surrounded by the greatest of riches, of luxuries, of pleasures. He wanted surely for nothing. And yet, right at the end of his life, what does he conclude of this all? That all that we have, all our achievements, everything we accumulate is somehow merely vain and fleeting. Consider again that powerful passage in the middle of this reading. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks. I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest. I had great possessions of herds and flocks. I gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasures of kings. And so I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. But, behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind, and there is nothing to be gained under the sun. All that he strove for, all that he received, even as blessing, Solomon eventually concludes, is simply going to pass away, as indeed he will. What is it for? Vanity. In the Hebrew, this word is hevel. It literally means like a passing wind, a mist, a vapor. Even, as some more recent scholars have translated it, a bubble, a thing that is and then it is no more. Vanity. We may look at this passage, and indeed so much through this book of Ecclesiastes, and see a rather bleak picture of life. When we look through this, how does he conclude? Well, it seems everything's just meaningless. Nothing's to be gained under the sun. It's all vanity. It's all a striving after wind. It's bubbles that simply disappear. What's the point? We might even say that on the face of it, Solomon here appears to be the first existentialist. We can find here sentiments as dark as those we might find in the nihilism of Nietzsche or Sartre. What are we to do with this? What is this dark, brooding, rather despairing book doing in the middle of Scripture? It seems to me that to begin to answer this, we need to look to this passing but key phrase that Solomon uses a couple of times, even just in this passage. And it's those three words: under the sun. All is vanity, he writes, and a striving after wind. There is nothing to be gained under the sun. Solomon looks to all of this world under the sun and says nothing here below will finally satisfy, will finally give true joy give purpose, give meaning. If you're looking for true fulfillment, for satisfaction, for depth, don't look for it here, he's suggesting. For that shan't be found under the sun. What a response to that extraordinarily easy temptation, at least for me, to seek and even believe that I have found a satisfaction in the alluring things of this world, this realm under the sun. Money, sex, power, authority, sensual pleasure, material things. Solomon had all this. He had all the world could offer, anything one could want, and yet even he looks back upon all this at the end of his life and declares, vanity of vanities. It was just a striving after the wind. None of this stuff has true meaning or purpose, he seems to suggest. And I wonder, is this a surprise? Is this a surprise? The great St. Augustine wrote centuries ago that we are made for God. We are wired for God. Lord, he writes, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. We're made for you, God. Only you can actually satisfy. Because of this, because we are made for God, made in his image, made to be with him, everything in this world is, by definition, less than satisfying. What's the great spiritual tragedy? It's trying to hook our innate desire for God onto anything that is less than God, onto anything under the sun. Paul seems to reference this in passing at the start of our second reading from Colossians when he writes, "Put to death, therefore, that which is idolatry." That's the root of sin in this sinful world, right? The making an idol of things that are going to pass, giving worship to, seeking satisfaction and fulfillment and meaning in that which is less than God. That's where my trouble starts. Jesus then seems to pick up on this in today's gospel reading. Do you remember what he says in the parable? He talks about this rich man, right, who has had a really a plentiful harvest. Right, things are going really well for this guy. He figures he has nowhere to store his crops. He has nowhere to accumulate all his goods. So what does he do? He says, "I'm going to tear down my barns and then I'll build larger ones. And there I can store it all. And then I can relax and say, in these things, soul, you may relax for many years and eat and drink and be merry." He's become addicted to these things in which he feels he can find satisfaction. This is what happens when I take my deep, underlying, innate to my human nature desire for God, him for whom I have been made, and attach it to something else. I work and work and work and seek to achieve that end, whatever it may be: car, house, bigger bank account, job, education, even family life, striving for these things under the sun. And for a while, one might indeed be satisfied. But what inevitably happens? We end up dissatisfied at some point with it. That satisfaction can never last long, as it can never speak to the deepest yearning of the heart that is restless until it finds its rest in God. And so what do? Like the rich man in the parable, we look for more. And so work and labor and may indeed achieve those ends again, and for a time be satisfied. But what happens after that? The cycle repeats over and over. True satisfaction will never there be found. Think of that rich man. What shall I do with these goods? I'll build bigger barns. Then when they're filled up, I'll build even bigger ones. When they're filled up, they'll be even larger. And so on. The point is, neither he nor I can truly ever be satisfied with any of it. He's working to try to achieve a satisfaction with the things of this world, the things under the sun, when his true satisfaction, joy, purpose, is offered freely by God, who does not call him to work for it, but simply to rest in it. How many of us work far too much and cling far too keenly to that which this world can produce. Indeed, how easy to idolize labor and the temporal fruits of work. Vanity of vanities. The Christian's life is not about the accumulation of goods or even efforts under the sun, but of seeking the great good, the true good, beyond the sun, the one for whom we have been made, God. Our attention is called here to the things above, the things which do not pass, the things of the eternity of God. Now, to say all this is not to speak of some kind of platonic fleeing from this world, some abandon the material, reject the things of the earth spirituality. Not at all. Rather, this simply seeks to put the things of this world, things which will pass away, in their proper perspective. Far from the depressing narrative of the existentialist or nihilist philosophers, everything's meaningless, there's no purpose in life, we may as well give up. This is, Ecclesiastes, in fact, a message ultimately of liberation. This is no call to flee the world, which is the Lord's good creation, or reject it outright, but to see that which is good and beautiful in this world in its proper context and appreciate it without clinging to it. The great English spiritual writer G.K. Chesterton seemed to grasp some of this in a bit of a poetic commentary on Ecclesiastes, and he writes, "It's precisely when I let go of this world and learn not to cling to it that I come to truly love and appreciate it. As long as I am clinging to it, then it won't, and it will turn to dust in my hand. It will not satisfy. But when I recognize that it cannot ultimately satisfy, when I recognize that it is ultimately vanity, then I can come to enjoy those things and see them as God sees them. Things that are indeed very good, but not our ultimate good, not that towards which we are to be oriented. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, is ultimately good news. Hold to things lightly, not just the material, but even those things in myself, in yourself, which you may particularly prize or cherish. Accomplishments, skills, gifts. Think of the Crown Prince of Austro-Hungary. There is nothing wrong with cherishing those things that are accumulated, but in perspective. In a moment when we gather around the altar, I'd like you to focus on a particular phrase which we're going to pray together during the consecration. And it's those words, "And here we present ourselves, our souls, our bodies." Everything that we are and everything that we have, holding them lightly, giving thanks for what we have, and cherishing them without clinging to them, and being ready to hold them before the Lord and use them for His purposes. Vanity of vanities. What a wonderful thing.